You ready, Jose? Okay. Welcome everybody to the Board of Commissioners meeting. Today is August 25th. It's 2:21 p.m. Anyone wishing to see a copy of the Open Meeting Act rules, they're available upon request. This is a public meeting, so if anybody wants to come forward and address the board, we just ask you to state your name for the record. In attendance today, we have Commissioner Burmeister, Kelly, and Warren. Commissioner Klug and Commissioner Mixon are en route and should be joining us shortly. Bonnie Moore, our administrator, is present, along with our county clerk, Amber Hoteling. If you would, silence your cell phones. And let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Anybody from the public wish to address the board? Okay, then we'll get right into our agenda. We got one item. It's a public hearing for the fiscal year 2027 budget. Dan Talakis, our Chief Financial Officer. Dan?
Commissioners, good afternoon. Everybody in the public and potentially watching at home, thanks for attending the fiscal year 27 budget hearing. I have a slideshow here that we'll walk through today. It starts with a slide that actually stole from our presentation to Moody's rating agency. And in that presentation, we coined the phrase, the Sarpy Advantage. We're the fastest growing county in the state. We have a board that is investing in important infrastructure, and it's a great place to live, work, play, and prosper now, and it will be in the future as well. This next slide, this is the most important slide of the whole presentation. This is our budget priorities and what we're doing to address some of these priorities. So number one priority in the budget continues to be public safety. The biggest focus is on the modern 911 Communications Center renovation of the old Pinnacle Bank building. This is an $8 million project, started in fiscal year 26 and is expected to be complete here in fiscal year 27, yet to come this winter. The second biggest priority in this budget is road infrastructure. Last week, we heard the presentation from Scott on the 1 in 6 year road program, which invests $325 million over the next 6 years in road projects. $117 million of that is here in fiscal year 27, and it's accompanied and supported by a $197 million bond issuance that we will talk about a little bit more in detail in a later slide. The third priority is to make sure that we're planning for our future. So we are undergoing a strategic planning process, a master campus planning process. And while those are going on, those are plans that will forecast kind of what years 3, 4, and 5 would look like for the county. In the short term, we're still focusing on our sewer infrastructure and the wastewater agency reserves that we are obligated to set aside. We're accomplishing those three priorities while keeping our fiscal discipline. So what does that mean? That means we have discipline in maintaining the county's tax levy. We continue to budget revenues conservatively. We set aside budgetary reserves as necessary. We manage our personnel, including a self-funded health insurance plan for employees. And we are conscious of our debt management and how we're managing that portfolio. Just to talk a little bit about what the budget process entails. Our general fund has 60 departments within it. And then in addition to that general fund, we have 42 other funds. So really, this budget process is like putting together 100 mini budgets into one large county budget. I don't expect you to be able to read anything on that list. It's just kind of an idea to present to you kind of how big the task of putting together the county budget is with those 100 different small department budgets. So the big picture in terms of putting together the county budget is we have sort of this equation that says we take our cash that we're beginning the year with, we add to that revenues that we expect to receive during the fiscal year, and then we have to have an appropriation of all of those dollars in the form of an expense budget. So we'll walk through this equation in some different slides and talk about each one of them, and we'll start with carry forward cash. So for fiscal year 27 budget, the county is carrying forward $107.2 million in cash. And you can see in this chart, I've given you 5 years history of what that carry forward cash has looked like. So if you look back at 23 and 24 and into 25, you see sort of a reduction in that carry forward cash. And that is due to ARPA funds that the county had on hand. We were spending those funds. And now that we've spent those in kind of 25, 26, 27, we see that carry forward cash being pretty consistent year over year. So when we say carry forward cash, like, what are we really talking about in that term? And we're really looking at two components to that. We're looking at cash that is in some way reserved, restricted, or otherwise already obligated, and then cash that is available. So reserved is pretty self-explanatory. So that's actually cash that we have set aside that is in the form of a reserve in urgent times. So that's part of the green bar that we see here, along with restricted cash, which think of that as things like lodging tax that can only be used for specific purposes. Keno revenue can only be used for specific purposes, so those are restricted. And then obligated cash, that's cash that we might have right now, but we already have it sort of earmarked for a project that is happening maybe next year or into a future year. And that really leaves us with kind of this relatively small amount of available cash between $10 and $20 million a year. And this is really the product of, when you look at kind of the prior year budget, it's actual revenues that exceeded our revenue budget, and then actual expenditures that came in under what our expense budget was. So the available cash that kind of moved from end of fiscal year 26 to the beginning of fiscal year 27 was $16.2 million of cash. When you look at just the general fund cash, I know you've seen this chart before. Again, it's not the easiest to read since there's so many lines on it, but what you're looking at here is there's a different line for each fiscal year of general fund cash at each month end. And the intention of this graph is the general fund cash is very cyclical. We start our fiscal year in July where cash is pretty high, and you can see from August, September, all the way through February, we are spending that cash out of the general fund. In March, we receive a property tax payment, and that's why those lines jump back up, and they continue to be spent April through June. Again, just very cyclical and predictable over and over again. So we take that carry forward cash and we add to it revenue that we expect to receive during the fiscal year. So you have a chart here where the inside of that circle, we have $197 million in road bond proceeds that we expect to receive in fiscal year 27. And then on the outside of that circle, we have some different categories for other revenues that the county typically receives. That road bond proceed revenue is a one-time only revenue. And you can see almost half of that outside circle, 48%, is made up of property tax. That is a revenue that this board has some control over by maintaining that tax levy and having that discipline around setting that tax levy. So the fiscal year 27 budget includes $89.7 million of property tax revenue. The second highest revenue source for the county is highway tax allocation revenue, $17 million. And that revenue goes straight to roads, and it is actually the revenue that we committed to repay debt payments in the future. The third largest revenue is motor vehicle fees. The fourth largest is $8 million in road contributions. So I know last week we had the 1 in 6 road program presentation, and Scott Bovick talked about how we recoup some of those expenses in the form of payments back to us from developers. So we have $8 million budgeted in road contributions. And then all the other revenue in the county makes up the last third. And when I say all the other revenue in the county, some examples there would be fees that the clerk's office takes in, so passport fees. and also document stamp taxes in there. Building permits, interest that the treasurer's office records, again, Keno revenue, stadium revenue, lodging tax, all of those types of revenues fit in that all other category. Those revenues, the highest one of all of those is $4.8 million. So they're very small pieces of our revenue budget, and even though we might have a little bit of control over it, it's not going to be some control that we can actually like make up a difference in property tax reduction or anything like that. We'll take a couple seconds here and look a little bit deeper into setting the property tax levy and what revenue that brings in. So this first graph here is a 20-year history of our tax levy. The county board has kept that levy flat or lowered it in all of those last 20 years. The current valuation is 28.496 cents per $100 of valuation. It's been unchanged for 4 years, and the Budget Committee is recommending that that levy be maintained for fiscal year 27. That 28 cents breaks down into basically, if you are a property owner, for every $100,000 of valuation, that's $285 in property taxes that come to the county. While the county has maintained or lowered that levy over the last 20 years, we have seen annual valuation increase in all of the last 20 years. So this chart is broken down by the change in reappraisal valuation and then the change in valuation due to growth. And you can see that even in the years where we had a reappraisal back in 2009, 2010, where it was actually a negative percentage, we still had growth that surpassed that. So we have had pretty significant growth through all these 20 years on this chart, and have never had a year where our total valuation went down. In 2025, the county's valuation was $29.6 billion, and in 2026, it's $31.5 billion. You take those two together, and we get the picture of what our property tax revenue over the last 5 years has looked like. And we have been increasing, even though the levy has been maintained. We are increasing in revenue due to that growth and that reappraisal increase. Couple things to talk about here. The first is we're in the second year of the Property Tax Growth Limitation Act, LB 34, that was set in the special session back in 2025. And this is also the second year in which, if you run through the formula in that Property Tax Growth Limitation Act, it actually provides the county authority to generate higher or more property tax revenue than what you see on the screen. So more than the $84.6 million last year, more than the $89.7 million this year. We are authorized to generate more dollars than this. However, in order to do that, the county would need to raise its levy. And this board has said we want to maintain that levy and be disciplined about that with some foresight to hopefully reduce it at some point. But right now the interest is to maintain that levy. In order to, since we have the authority to generate more dollars, each of these last 2 years, we are actually taking a portion of that authority and moving it to unused authority in order to maintain our levy. Now, that unused authority has a max that we can carry over from year to year, and after this year, we will be at that max. The second thing to talk about here is we still have LB 644, which is the statute that requires the county to attend the joint public hearing if we don't reduce our property tax valuation, property tax request to growth plus 2%. So what that would look like if we wanted to comply with LB 644 this year, we would have to have a $2.8 million reduction in property tax revenue. With a reduction like that in our budget, we would be looking at capital projects or potentially personnel as that reduction. That would lower our levy to 27.8744 cents per $100 of valuation. That would provide $6 of savings for every $100,000 of valuation. So if you were a property owner with a $300,000 home, that would save you $18 in property taxes for the county to take a $2.8 million reduction in property tax revenue. So you're looking at, again, $2.8 million reduction in property tax revenue. You're looking at capital projects, personnel, essential services that we would look at having to make a reduction in. Okay, so now we take that carry forward cash, we add to it expected revenue in the fiscal year, and back to that fundamental budget equation, we have to have an expense budget that appropriates all of those dollars. So this year, fiscal year 27, Sarpy County has a $525 million expense budget. So just generally, when you're asked the question, what is the county's budget? It's $525 million, okay? Now, I mentioned earlier when we were talking about revenue, we have this $197 million bond issuance. Our expense budget appropriates all of those dollars to be spent in fiscal year 27. That's not the plan. We plan to spend those dollars over 3 years, but the way that this works, we have to appropriate all $197 million in year one. So just for purposes of looking at this a little bit differently, if you were to back out that $197 million bond issuance, our budget would be $328 million. It's a 4.5% increase over the prior year. Okay? But again, we have to show that we have a $525.6 million expense budget. Now, we'll spend that money over 3 years. So over those 3 years, if we project what that'll look like, we'll have a reduction in our budget next year, a reduction in the budget the year after that. And if you average what that increase is over the next 3 years, you're looking at something more like 10% over a 3-year period as we spend those bond proceeds. Specifically in fiscal year 27, what does our spending look like? Again, public safety is our #1 priority, and we've allocated almost $70 million to public safety. This would be the Sheriff's Office, 911, County Attorney, Public Defender, the Correctional Center, JJC, all of those different departments. We also have allocated $260 million to road projects. Again, that includes the $197 million, the full $197 million of bond proceeds are in that budget. We have $33.5 million in reserves and obligations. This would be the county's $21 million cash reserve. We have $6.4 million set aside for wastewater agency reserves. We have a $4.3 million requirement to hold for the landfill post-closure fund. We have $14.8 million in unfunded mandates that are passed down to us. If we were able to eliminate those, we would be able to lower our levy to 23.7875 cents per $100 of evaluation. That would save the taxpayer for every $100,000 evaluation $47. So if you owned a $300,000 home and we didn't have to pay for these unfunded mandates, now it's $150 in savings to you. The all other category here, all other services and other capital projects, those would be other forward-facing departments that citizens might be aware of, like the assessor's office, the treasurer's office, the clerk's office, veteran services, elections commission, tourism, and then internal departments like fiscal, technology services, administration, purchasing, human resources, things like that. If you look just at the general fund, this is the general fund budget over the last 5 years, and in fiscal year 27, we're looking at about a $10 million increase in the general fund, about 6% increase. And when we look at that a little bit deeper and we say, what exactly does the general fund, and what is it made up of? We categorize those expenses into 3 buckets. So personnel, operating, and capital, our cash reserve, and then transfers out of the general fund to another fund. And if we just look at 27 and 26 and compare those 2 years, transfers are about the same. There's a $200,000 difference in transfers. Our cash reserve is maintained at $21 million. So all $10 million of that increase is in that personnel, operating, and capital category. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit just so that we're on the same page here. Of that $10 million increase, about $4 million of that is salaries and wage-related expenses. So we have agreements with different bargaining units. That is the cost to increase that from last year to this year. That is also $5 million of an increase in capital projects. Some of those include new generators at the courthouse in 1102 building, HVAC work pretty much across the county, as well as a system that will be able to provide kind of like HVAC oversight, a controls program for all the different buildings. And then that leaves about $1 million in actual increase in operating costs, which if you look at that, that's less than 1% of an increase in the budget in operating costs. On that slide, I mentioned our reserves, so let's talk about that a little bit. We have a $21 million cash reserve. That equates to 2.6 months of reserve. So we'd be able to operate for 2.6 months based off of just that reserve that we have. Our reserve policy says that we have to have a minimum of 2 months. So we're ahead of what our reserve minimum is. The best practice recommended range from the Government Finance Officers Association is to have a reserve between 2 and 3 months. So we're right in the middle of that range. As we look at the county's debt here, so we'll start kind of 23 through 26. The county had both highway allocation road bonds that we were repaying and then debt on the stadium that we were repaying. So the green section of this chart is road bond debt. The blue section is stadium debt. And you can see from 23 through 26, we were making payments on those. We were paying off that debt. In 27, we'll still be making payments on those existing debt, but we are also taking on that $197 million in new road bond debt. So we're more than doubling what our debt portfolio is. We have a 20-year repayment on that new schedule. Just to kind of jump back, we got authorization from the board to do up to $200 million in road bonds back in April. We did our rating call through Moody's, and the county maintained its AAA rating. There is less than 5% of counties nationwide that have a AAA rating. The Moody's rating agency specifically noted our large economic base being in the Omaha metropolitan area, as well as Offutt Air Force Base as positives. And then also noted our strong financial position, which includes our reserve as well. They noted that while this bond issuance does take us above the average for what they would like to see, we did commit in that rating call that we have no expected debt issuances over the next 24 months after this. And they were okay with that. A couple slides here to round out my presentation. The first is just kind of giving you a picture of where we're at in the timeline. The budget process starts all the way back on April 1st. So we're well into month 5 of the budget process. So a lot of work happens April, May, June, July to get us to where we are today at this public hearing. After today, we'll finish up the budget process throughout the month of September with budget adoption on September 15th. We'll have the joint public budget hearing on September 23rd. We'll approve the tax levy on September 29th and then have to get our budget filed with the state auditor's office the next day on September 30th. And then lastly, this is very much a team approach. I'm not going to read every name on this list, but I did want to acknowledge, the budget committee, the position review committee, the team in administration, the team in fiscal that I have, as well as all of the department heads and people that work in departments that manage their budget. There's a lot of communication that goes back and forth. There's a lot of dialogue. Everybody is really a team player in this and works together and makes sure that we're on the same page about what we're putting in the budget. So thank you to everybody that's on this. And I'm sure that I forgot somebody and I apologize. But it is a big team effort. So I want to say thank you to them. So at this point, it is a public hearing. So if there's anybody in the public that wants to speak, you're welcome to entertain them. Or if you have any questions, I'd be happy to address any of those too.
Anybody have any questions?
Yeah. Dan, first, apologies for being late. Earlier, you'd mentioned that we're underneath the cap that is allowed by the state legislation that's trying to limit property taxes. And you said that we're, I guess, leaving the money on the table isn't really a fair statement, but you said we're maximizing that after this budget cycle. What does that mean for future budget cycles?
So currently, by moving some of that authorization of property tax to the unused category, we are saving that to, in next year, we could bring some of that unused property tax authority into our equation if we need to, right? Beginning next year, if we're going to be capped out, if that unused portion of our authority is maxed out and we want to move more, or if we want to, what we're doing now is taking some of that and putting it to unused authority, it's going to essentially just get wiped from the unused authority and it's going to be gone forever.
Thank you.
Yep.
And you also said that in order to not have to attend the 644 hearing, we'd have to cut the budget by 2.8 million. And that would equate to about $18 for a person that had a $300,000 house.
Correct. It would be a $2.8 million reduction in property tax revenue for the county. And on a $300,000 home, it would be about $18 in property tax savings off their bill.
Okay. And if we were to cut 2.8 million, where would that come from?
So, I mean, I believe, we'd have to look at our capital projects listing and say, is there a project that's on this that we can defer or, that we would not do? The next option would be to look at personnel or services that we offer.
Okay.
Or we could just seek the wisdom of our state legislators who tend to think they got 50-mile long screwdrivers. They can tell us how to execute our budget down here at the local government level. That's an option too, but not likely.
Will it be a Flathead or a Phillips? Oh, I have a question for you. All right, back to the bonds slide. I also apologize for being late. I know the bonds for the stadium will be going away in 2036 or 34.
I was going to say 34.
Okay.
It's 36.
Okay, thank you, Bonnie.
What is it?
36.
Okay, so 2036. So that's going to go away in 9 years. So the 120 million, how many more years is left on that? And I think if going forward, like next year or whatever, if you could at least take it out to 2036, that would be nice to see how that dips. And obviously, we're going to start dipping out of the 197 will start being reduced as well. Mm-hmm. It'll be nice to see how we're reducing this debt. So.
Yes, absolutely. The green section of this, the 120 million, that runs through all the way through 2041.
Okay.
Maybe 2042. I'd have to double check. I believe it's 2041, but it might be 2042. And then the new 197 million is all the way through 2046.
Yeah. It would be helpful because as I look at that and you look at what we're carrying right now, was that 200, 320,
333. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we're carrying $330 million worth of debt. It would be nice to see how that is shrinking as we go forward as well, as Absolutely. We're paying it down.
Yeah.
I have one other question on the legislation. So if we were to reduce the property tax asks by the 2.8 million and save the taxpayer $18, then next year, is there a cumulative effect with that statute?
Yes, because that would become our new base for the following year. Now, if we reduced our ask to meet LB 644, then that's more that we could move to unused. But since unused is capped, it would not, like, we would not be able to recapture that at some point. If our unused was not capped, then yes, we might be able to put it towards unused and then recapture it the next year. But no, for us, that would be dollars that we would not see, and then it would reestablish the base for future years. So we would essentially be cutting ourselves $2.8 million every year from now on out.
And that has in a fast-growing county, has a cumulative effect that makes it difficult for long-term planning, right?
Yes.
Any other questions? Anybody from the public want to address the board? Okay, I don't see anybody coming forward, so we'll close the hearing. Thank you. Dan, appreciate it.
Thank you all.
All the agenda items have been addressed as published, and this Board of Commissioners meeting is adjourned. We'll reset here and kick off the regular Board of Equalization and Board of Commissioners meeting in 7 minutes. Thank you.
It's my turn to forget to put it on my calendar.
Okay, welcome everybody to the Sarpy County Board of Equalization meeting. Today's Tuesday, August 25th, 2026 is 3 p.m. Anyone who wants to speak during open public comment or on a specific agenda item, we just ask that when you come forward, you check in with our clerk over here, Tabby Bellucci, and also state your name for the record. In attendance today, we got all 5 commissioners, our county administrator, our clerks here, our treasurers here. And I don't see any other elected officials, but we do have a guest speaker today, so I'm going to rush right through this meeting so we can get to him. If you haven't already, silence your cell phones. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Anybody from the public wish to address the Board of Equalization? Okay, then we'll get right into the consent agenda. We got 5 items. Unless any of the commissioners want to discuss one of those items, I'll take a motion to approve as published.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Klug, second by Commissioner Mixon. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Motion passed.
Okay, we don't have any regular agenda items today. There's no need for an executive session, and all agenda items have been addressed as published, and the Board of Equalization is adjourned. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Board of Commissioners meeting. Today's August 25th, 2026. It's 3:01 p.m. Anyone wishing to see a copy of the Nebraska Opens Meeting Act, we have one on file. Anybody from the public who wants to address the board is welcome to do so, and just follow the same guidelines I provided in our last meeting. Is there anybody from the public that wants to talk to us today? I'm a little disappointed. No one? All right, well, maybe the commissioners will have something to say. David?
I got nothing, Don.
Okay,
Zilch.
yeah.
Striking out.
All right, that's fine. That's good.
I just want to thank our facilities team. We had some challenges at the 1102 building, and so they worked kind of around the clock to try and get a fix for that, and just appreciate the patience of everyone over there in that building and as we work through some of the heat issues.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry that we had some air conditioning problems. There's nothing worse than being in a work environment where it's uncomfortable, not only for our employees, but for our customers. But we have a long-range plan to replace those. I think they're end of life, and if we can just get through the rest of this season, we'll have some great air-conditioned air blowing on you when the weather heats up in 2027. Today, we're pleased to have a guest speaker, John Cannon. He's the NACO Executive Director, and he's going to come up and give us a quick update on all the activities that he's performing and undertaking as our NACO Director. Welcome, John.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. So good afternoon. My name is John Cannon. I'm the Executive Director of your Association of County Officials, NACO, as we refer to it frequently. Very pleased to be here. I appreciate the time on the agenda. Bonnie, thanks for making the time for me. Certainly appreciate that. What I wanted to address with you, and when I've come here before, I've just kind of rambled off the cuff, kind of like a shaggy dog, and I apologize for that. That's my nature. If any of you have met Candace Meredith, the NACO Deputy Director, you will realize that she doesn't put up for those shenanigans at all. And so she made me put a lot of things down in print, and that's the packet that I've handed out to you guys. When I'm in the rotunda at the Capitol, a lot of people will say, NACO is a lobbying organization, and I don't think that's entirely accurate. Our job is to provide resources to counties across the state, and so part of what I do is I go to counties and I say, here's how we connect you with the resources that NACO has. I started doing this when I first got to NACO in 2018. I did a study. I realized that there were certain counties that just were not attending the things that we were doing. And I also noticed those same counties would call us and they would have questions about the Open Meetings Act, the County Purchasing Act, legislation. And I thought, boy, we're really missing an opportunity here. And so I went off to 3 different counties that were not really attending a lot of stuff and said, here's what NACO offers. Here are the things that we do. And like I said, Candace made me actually reduce it to writing. So here we are with the packet that you have in front of you. And so that first sheet that I've got there really just kind of describes a lot of what NACO's about, what our board of directors looks like, but more importantly, a lot of the educational opportunities that we have throughout the year. We obviously have our district meetings that you guys are very familiar with, our annual conference that we talk about and we promote, but there are a few others that I want to mention. We have our county board chair workshop that we put on every year. Next year we will have new county board member orientation. I don't believe that's an issue for your board. A number of other things that we work with the clerks, the treasurers, the assessors. I just came back from the assessors workshop myself where we assisted in setting that up. But one that I do want to point out is the October 16th legislative conference in Burwell that we'll be hosting. Angela will be going as a member of the NACO board, but it's at that legislative conference, and Gary's familiar with this as well. It's at that legislative conference that the NACO board takes positions on upcoming, we adopt our legislative priorities for the upcoming session. And so what I can tell you is the assessors, the clerks, the treasurers, the weed superintendents, highway superintendents, they're all incredibly well organized. And they come before the NACO board and they say, here are ways that can make the performance of our jobs a little bit more efficient, a little bit more cost-effective for the taxpayer. And the board reviews all those positions that they're being asked to take, and they say, here are the ones that we're going to adopt as our priorities. Beth Farrell, who really kind of spearheads a lot of our lobbying effort, she always tells me, tell the board to limit it to 10. We always exceed that routinely. So I'm asking you to help me exceed that total again this year. But one of the things that we had not traditionally done is we didn't really have that venue for county board members who have their own unique view of how county government operates to be able to put those priorities in front of the NACO board. And so one of the things that I do when I come and talk to you guys about what the sorts of things that NACO has, particularly with the legislative conference, is to encourage you, if there's something where you've been in a board meeting, you say, I want to do this, and either Bonnie or your county attorney or your county clerk says, yeah, you can't do that because of a reason. And you thought, well, that really makes it harder for us to do the business of the county. I'd like to hear about it. And I think that's something that would be worth the board's while for reviewing and saying, perhaps there's a better way. Perhaps we can bring some legislation next year that'll make this whole thing a little bit more efficient, more cost effective. So I do want to highlight that it's in Burwell. The reason that we have it in Burwell is it's traditionally from the area where your past president is from. Our past president this year is Garfield County Commissioner Diana Hurlbert. She's from Burwell. She's very, very proud of the big little rodeo that's there. They had their grandstand wiped out by a derecho a couple of years ago. They got a federal grant. They rebuilt it. Place is a palace. Before they had the rodeo this year, I would have said you could eat off the floors. Maybe not so much after the rodeo's been held, but anyway, that's that first page there. It really kind of goes through a lot of the educational opportunities, a lot of the workshops and seminars and those sorts of things. One thing that's not on here that I do want to draw to your attention, especially given that you just had a conversation about the budget, and that is we had our budget webinar May 28th of this year. We recorded it, and we've got it online. It's on the NACO website. Certainly, if you want to find that, given the fact that you're in the middle of budget season, you're welcome to do so. The reason that we do that is because, as you guys are well aware, when it comes to the legislature, they always want to poke and prod us when it comes to property taxes, and you guys are probably more intimately familiar with how the property tax works than our friends in the legislature. But that said, what they've really kind of boiled down to is getting down to the tax asking. And they love to say, counties, here's a whole bunch of things that we want you guys to do. By the way, we don't want you to raise your property taxes too much. But what they end up doing, though, as a result, is they really focus in on our property tax request, which, as you know, is a direct result of the budgeting process. And so there's been a lot of legislation in the last couple of years that really, really focus in on our requests. And so we had that budgeting workshop just to make sure that we're all on the same page. There's a lot of stuff that, and I noticed that Dan was talking about the Government Finance Officers Association, the GFOA guidelines for your reserve. That's a template that we developed with them. It's been used in some counties with great success. A lot of counties do not have a reserve, which is unfortunate. The fact that you guys do is really speaks well of Sarpy County. That's a good stewardship of taxpayer dollars because you're saving for the rainy day, as you guys know. So let's see, where was I? So anyway, that budget workshop, it's online. If it's available, if you'd like to review it. In that packet, there's a number of other things. We have our research division has put together a one-sheet page that tells you about Sarpy County. And it's just a one-shot that says, here's your tax base, here's the population, all the stuff that you guys intuitively know, but it's a handy thing to hand out to taxpayers, citizens, voters, state senators, other stakeholders and whatnot in the community. It's a really good snapshot. At the bottom right-hand corner of that sheet, you'll see a QR code, which will take you to our Nebraska Counties Explorer webpage, and you'll find more information about Sarpy County than you ever wanted to. We cull information from the University of Nebraska, from the Department of Revenue, from the U.S. Census Bureau, a ton of stuff that's there. It's available for you, your constituents, other friends of yours in the community. The next page that we have is a kind of a flow chart on how property taxes are determined. I saw the thing that you guys have outside the chamber here, which says here's where all your property tax dollars go. This kind of gets a little bit more granular. It talks about, we start off with a valuation base, and then we go to a property tax request. We go to what that means for a levy rate, what that means for the average assessed value for single-family residential. And you circle on down. One of the things that we have on there also is a comparison to typical household expenses as determined by the U.S. Census Bureau. And so when you look at how Sarpy County's, the county's levy of $1,000 compares to the average homeowner expense of almost $7,000, I think it's a really good story to tell for our taxpayers. And so all this information is for your use. If there's anything that you want to use, of course, you're welcome to do so. We think that's a nice little tool. It allows you to tell your story of, here are the things that you're getting for your $1,000. By the way, that $7,000, that's for Netflix and your cell phone and your homeowner's insurance and your gas and utilities. And we think it really tells the story of what the county is doing and the bang for the buck that your taxpayers are getting. I'm short on time, and so I won't go through all the partners that we have there. Needless to say, there's a number of the rainy sheets in there that talk about who we partner with for preferred or endorsed services. So you've got D.A. Davidson, you've got EECS, Office Supply, a lot of those things that are available to you through NACO. And I do want to mention the National Association of Counties. They're great partners. They do a lot of things for us on the federal level, and there are certain things that through the National Association of Counties we make available to counties as well. One thing I do want to mention about the National Association of Counties is that your dues are incorporated into your NACO dues. So dues for the National Association is incorporated into your NACO dues. We subsidize 10% of it, and so essentially what we did was we raised your strictly state association dues by 90% of what your national association dues were. We figured that was an appropriate thing for us to do so we could have 100% membership. The last thing I want to mention in the limited time I have available to me is talking about legislation. I'm not going to go through the laundry list of bills. I've got about 120 that I could go through. I don't think you want me to do that. But what I do want to talk about is the importance of engagement. And what I will tell you first and foremost is your legislative delegation is great to work with, all of them. I had Senator Roundtree that called me up at the beginning of the summer, and he said, I want you to explain certain things related to the property tax and other things that relate to county government to me. He gave me 2 hours. He said, explain it to me like I'm 5. And we had a great conversation about that. Senator Sanders, I would tell you that she is objectively probably our best champion inside the legislature for county government. She's carried a number of bills. She's pushed for a number of bills that we care about. She's a really, really good advocate for county government. Bob Anderson he's always had an open door policy with us. He has reached out to me several times, either him or his staff, to talk about different things related to county government. Victor, I mentioned Senator Roundtree, Senator Arch. He's the speaker, so he doesn't get too involved in the politics of everything. And my time is just about up. He doesn't get too involved in the politics of everything, but what he does do is he has an open door for us. I need to turn this thing off, pardon me. Has an open door policy for us. Anytime that we want to meet with him about something that's a priority for us, he makes the time for us. And so you've got a great representative there as well. And I'm missing, who am I missing? Who's the fifth one? What's that? Senator Holdcroft. He brought the bill that essentially has HHS being paid for by the state as far as the space that they occupy in the county government. So you really can't ask for much better than that. The thing that I'll leave you with, though, is that the engagement that you guys have with your legislative delegation makes a huge difference for our legislative effort. And so there are a number of times that I've called any number of those folks out into the rotunda, and they'll say, I've already talked to Angie, I've already talked to David, I've already talked to Don. That conversation is going to go really, really well, right? The only thing that I would ask to do in addition to that is engage other stakeholders that have that representation at the legislature as well. Talk to your local chamber. Have them come to some of your meetings. Talk to the schools. Talk to the city council. Have them come to some of your meetings. Attend some of their meetings. Attend some of the local farm bureau meetings, because those folks, when I talk to them in the legislature and I say, hey, we should work on some stuff together, they're driven by their membership as well. And so when we're all talking together at the local level as part of our communities, one, that's a great way to chart the course for the community, but two, that bubbles up to the statewide association leadership. And so I know that when we have talked together about things that we have in common, I don't care who the governor is, I don't care who sits in the legislature, I will get 40 votes if those main stakeholders in local communities are in agreement on stuff. And so my ask of you is to continue the engagement effort. You've already done a great job on your legislative delegation, but continue that with other stakeholders in the community that I run into in the Capitol. So way over time. I appreciate your indulgence. I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Questions? So yeah, I just, what do you think is gonna be the overriding priority for this upcoming legislative session?
Well, they're likely to start the session off at least $850 million in the hole, so I think they're going to talk about that. And with it being a long session, they have an obligation to pass a balanced budget in that long session. And so they're going to have to work overtime to make sure they're able to keep the lights on and balance the books. So that's going to be the overriding issue. That said, it's not going to leave them a lot of time to pick on local government, which is a good and a bad thing. Because they don't have a lot of time, it would be very, very easy for them to say, you know what, we'll do something crazy like a 2% plus growth cap on property tax and no exceptions. That was a bill that was in the legislature last year, LB 1219, along with a companion constitutional amendment. That would have been devastating for big, medium, and small counties. And so when they don't have a lot of time, they start looking at those sorts of Hail Marys, and that's the danger. But by and large, they should mostly be leaving us alone, except for when they don't. That's not much of an answer.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's just been our observation that because they bring too many bills to the floor. I mean, first of all, so you want to affect real change, let's limit the amount of bills each senator can bring to the floor to something realistic that can actually be achieved, instead of each of them bringing 30 when they might get a chance of one or two getting, a day of hearings and a day on the floor. It's just unrealistic. The second thing is because they can't do them all, they group them all together in these big omnibus, and I guarantee you we got to pull the knife out of our back every time they pass one of those, because you got to go through about the 80th page to realize, oh, you just got put on the docket for continuing education. And you're going, what? Continuing education for me?
Yeah, LB 663, it's 4 hours per term.
You know what I mean? That stuff,
yeah.
That's the kind of stuff I wish we could curtail.
Yeah, you know what's funny is a lot of them were talking about that. A lot of them actually had that as part of their stump speech 2 years ago when the current crop of freshmen was running for office. And they got there, and the chair of the exec board, Senator Ben Hansen from Blair, said, we're going to limit every senator to no more than 20 bills. And I'm like, well, hold on a second, I can do that math. 49 senators times 20 bills is 980 bills. That's not going to help anything. And there was one senator who said, I'm going to introduce 21, and let's see if anyone stops me. So that was a fun time. But your point is well taken. I mean, there's an awful lot of bills that they're introduced, and everyone knows they're not going to see the light of day. They're going to have a hearing. They're going to take time in a committee hearing, and then we're not going to hear about that bill ever again because it's never going to come out.
Well, and I think most local governments, and I'm talking school boards, I'm talking cities, they find it a little bit frustrating when there is a matter that they want to address before a hearing, and they drive 50 miles, 100 miles, 200 miles, and they get 3 minutes to make their case.
Yeah.
I mean, that's frustrating.
It is, absolutely.
And I don't have a good solution to that because I know you got to keep things moving. You got to keep things moving, but it almost feels like anybody that goes down there to a public hearing is that your opinion really isn't valued. It's just a formality. We're just going through the motions. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but or if NACO has any way to affect change in that arena, that would be something that would be helpful, I think.
The best we can do, Don, is when you're coming down and you want to testify, let me know beforehand. It's like, hey, I want more than 3 minutes, and I will poke the chair of the committee or other committee members and say, ask a lot of open-ended questions, please.
Well,
That's
generally no one who wants to hear me for more than 3 minutes. Anyways. You know, but you get my point, right?
absolutely, and frankly, Don, you might say that, and maybe amongst your board members, and I'm not going to poke that bear. But what I will say is I'll pay good money, and I'll pop the popcorn if I can get you in front of the legislature and have you give them a piece of your mind for about 10, 20 minutes.
Well, it's a tough job down there. I mean, I think we all respect it's a very difficult. I mean, it's hard enough to find consensus with 5 of us.
Yeah.
And you're trying to wrestle with 48 other, colleagues. It's difficult, and we understand that.
Yep.
But we appreciate the job that you do, John. I mean, I think you've made some really proactive and significant improvements in the organization and the way they support, county governments in particular. And so we really, really do appreciate you and driving all the way down here from Lincoln today to talk to us. That's really
Best part of my job, Don. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. It really is. I get to see every square inch of the state and talk to people about a lot of the common issues that we have, and it's the most meaningful, purposeful work I could ask for. And speaking of which, one of the things I always like to mention is the fact that NACO is owned by all 93 counties. We are your employees. And so if there's ever anything that you need, I mean, the fact that I'm coming down here is not a special thing. I mean, I think it's what we owe you at a minimum. If there's ever anything that NACO's doing and you're like, I kind of want an answer out of these guys, let me know and we'll be here. I mean, it's not we decide to come to you. I mean, we're here because you're giving us the grace to do that. But if there's something that you want us to explain, let me know. We'll be here. We might have to negotiate a time because there's 92 other counties. But that said, we owe it to you to be here to explain ourselves.
Well, I can't wait to get the trip report from Angie after her trip to Burwell.
Well, you could go too.
Oh, I'll let Angie handle that one for me.
Yeah, actually, I'm trying to figure out where we're going to put people because they don't have a lot of motel rooms there. So
No, they don't. I mean, isn't that by Calamus?
yeah, it's right next to Calamus.
Yeah, that's what
I might get an Airbnb just for kicks.
Yeah, there you go. Well, we appreciate all you do. Does anybody else have any questions?
Well, I have just a comment. Since the state legislature is big into capping, I think we need to flip that. And instead of trying to cap a legislator of 20 bills, let's just find, and John Arch would probably be the perfect one since he's the speaker. We can just cap the total amount of bills if it's 500, say, instead of, because then that'll give you a fair amount of time at a hearing, a little bit more than 1,000. So I think we need to pursue just capping how many total bills are introduced and let the senators fight out between themselves how many they want to.
Yeah, Gary, I think that's a great idea. And if you were able to, if we were able to get that done, I can tell you the lobby would carry you out of there like a hero.
So one last question, and it has to do with inheritance tax. So,
Yeah.
I mean, what's the buzz about that this year?
Yeah, so we worked really, really hard with Senator Clements on trying to find replacement revenue. They started off last year $473 million in the hole. There was no replacement revenue. They didn't have anywhere to go. They were cleaning out all the cookie jars that they could to fund state government. And it got to the point where at the very end of the session, and Senator Clements, he worked with us in good faith. He's a good, decent person. I really enjoyed working with him on that, and I really wanted to give him a win on the way out the door. But it got to the point where their whole session was consumed with trying to close the budget hole. We got to the very end of the session, and he said, "Can we give you the statutory equivalent to an IOU?" And I'm like, "No, we can't do that." I'm pretty sure that the board would fire me if I ever agreed to something like that. That said, we have an interest in, I mean, we're alone on that issue, right? There's no one else that's manning the ramparts on the inheritance tax. You don't have the cities and the schools and all of our other friends that typically work with us on property taxes. They're not there for us on that issue. And frankly, if I can get rid of that as an issue, but make sure that the county is made whole, then that's the best of all worlds. But until the state is serious about replacing revenue and giving us a guarantee, which they can only do through the Constitution, it's gonna be really, really hard for us to do that. And so To answer your question more directly, Senator Kauf from Douglas County, it appears that she's picking up the banner on that one. We've had a lot of conversations with her over the summer about what are some potential sources of revenue that could be directed toward replacement revenue for county government to essentially eliminate or sharply reduce the inheritance tax. There's a lot of interesting conversations and ideas that we've had back and forth with her. We'll see if anything comes of it. But again, at the end of the day, until the state is able to give us a guarantee that it's not going to force us to either reduce our services or increase our property tax ask, I can't in good conscience agree to something like that. And oh, by the way, the math bears the whole thing out. Last year, counties across the state levied just over $1 billion in property taxes. Counties across the state had about $100 million of inheritance tax receipts. So that's a $1.1 million spend. If you cut $100 million bucks out of that, I can do that math. That's 9%. That's 9% either way. It's either 9% fewer services or it's 9% increase in property taxes. But that's how the equilibrium is achieved. And until they're able to say that we don't have to raise property taxes but still provide the same amount of services, they've got to give us a guarantee.
So is there any chance, I mean, I think you heard our budget briefing and talked about how much money could be saved if the underfunded or unfunded mandates went away, how much property tax relief we could provide, because it's a big chunk of our expenditure every year.
Yeah,
is to get that trade-off going. I think that's the only logical step forward, because it's not Sarpy County issue, that's a 93 county issue.
Well, I can extrapolate. You guys, it's 14.8 million, is I think what the number was. If you extrapolate that out across all 93 counties, it's probably about 130 to 150 million bucks. That takes care of the inheritance tax for sure. The question is which mandates does the state want to fund? Which things do they want to take on? And generally speaking, there's kind of a little bit of a back and forth. There's some things where they say, well, we'll just, in addition to funding this, we're just going to do the thing, and we're going to relieve the county of the obligation of doing that. Sometimes we have to have a conversation. It's like, is this really a good thing to have done from a centralized government, or is it better to be done at the local level? And so we have to have those conversations. We have to figure out what are the things that are best done at the local level. And if you want us to do it at the local level, if we all agree this is something that's best done in Sarpy County, then we need to identify the funding source for it. And if they don't want to identify the funding source for it, then don't make us do it. So those are the conversations we have to have. It gets pretty hairy and pretty nuanced pretty quickly. But your point is well taken. Unfunded mandates or underfunded mandates, they cost us a heck of a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate all your work and effort on behalf of the counties, and thanks for coming today.
Yeah, my pleasure. I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, that gets us into the consent agenda. We have 5 items on the consent agenda, unless any of the commissioners want to see an item moved.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Warren, second by Commissioner Burmeister to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Please vote.
Motion passed.
Okay, 2 items on the regular commissioners' agenda. The first one is a public hearing and recommendation to the Liquor Control Commission for Millard Veterans Alliance for a Class C beer, wine, spirits on and off sale liquor license for their business at 10402 South 144th Street, Omaha, Nebraska. The applicant is Mary Timberlake, operator. Is Mary here?
Marty.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments? It's a public hearing. Anybody want to address the board? Okay, I don't see anybody coming forward. I'll close the hearing and take a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Warren and a second by Commissioner Klug to approve the recommendation. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Motion passed.
Okay, the last item on the agenda today is Resolution 249, accepting the final allocation of levy authority for fiscal year 2026-2027 for the Eastern Sarpy Suburban Fire District, Gretna Suburban Fire District, Millard Suburban Fire District, Papillion Rural Protection District, Springfield Rural Fire District, and Sarpy County Agricultural Society. Cassandra Young, Chief Deputy County Clerk.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Resolution 2026-249 will require your approval today to accept the final levy allocation for the fire districts and the Sarpy County AG Society. We have Kevin Edwards present today representing Papillion and Millard if you have any questions, and I'd be happy to answer any as well.
Any questions for the chiefs or Cassandra? No, I don't think so.
Motion to approve 2026-249.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Warren and a second by Commissioner Klug. Any further discussion or comments? I appreciate the work. I
Yeah,
really do.
absolutely.
Thanks to the chiefs for keeping the budget tight and getting the biggest bang for our dollars. So thank you for that.
Great. Thank you.
Please vote.
Motion passed.
Okay, no need for an executive session. All agenda items have been addressed as published, and the Board of Commissioners is adjourned.